I'm Daniel Kwan.
I'm Agatha Chang.
And I'm Amar Ijaz.
And we're the co-hosts of Asians Represent.
We explore cultural stereotypes in games, new and old, and how we can overcome them to make the gaming industry more equitable by talking to entertainers, scholars, educators, activists, and designers.
While doing this, we're also going to have some fun with actual play content like our Masks New Shambhala miniseries and our ongoing Dungeons and Asians campaign.
Most importantly, we're highlighting the contributions of a new generation of Asian creators who are making the gaming market a place we feel represented. Their creations and unique experiences play a transformative role in turning the gaming scene into a place that we can love and trust again.
So check us out by subscribing to Asians Represent on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
You know things, I know some too. Sit right down, the femsplain them to you. If there's a thing you want to explain, these two feminists can entertain. Nerdy stuff, sexy stuff, so much to know. Tune in for the Femsplain Show.
Good morning, listeners, and good morning, Avalon.
Good morning, Diana.
And a special extra good morning to Sam.
Yes, Sam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me on. This is super exciting.
We're very excited to have you, and I'm very excited about the topic, even though we're not supposed to talk about it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't talk about it yet. It's a big old secret. So before we go anywhere near topics, I wanted to do a little recap of, usually, Sam, we do a recap of what nerd culture has done for us lately.
Okay.
Or to us, if you're feeling in a mood and nerd culture has been bad lately, we can also do that. For me, this week, nerd culture has been very, exciting and blessing. So I'm actually in a good mood. So let's see, what's going on. First of all, I started downloading Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and my computer was like, no, we don't like it. We don't like it. It's not working.
Oh.
Which is fine, because to keep up with the stream, I was like, well, I got to find some other stuff to do. So I decided to download my favorite video game from when I was a kid, Spy Fox in Tri-Serial. It is like one of those 2D games where you just click on objects to interact with them, and it's basically like just a big mystery puzzle game. And we played it on the stream, and it was so hilarious, truly weird. And like a bunch of people came in who were just like, holy cow, I forgot all about this thing. And now are suggesting like other games from that time period of like old computer gaming. And honestly, like I kind of only did this as like just for a laugh. And now I'm like fully in the deep end of 2D old, like, original computer games. So I'm pretty psyched about that.
That's awesome.
So that's what nerd culture's done for me lately. Avalon, what about you? Anything good?
I want to co-sign that idea for streaming. I was so excited to see you play this game that I forgot existed.
Love it.
Yes.
I've never played, so that would be really cool, honestly.
It just brought me back.
It turns out that was the only one I owned as a kid, but apparently there's like a whole series of them that I had no idea about. So I'm like, I'm just totally psyched. Yeah.
I love that. I've been watching WandaVision.
Ooh, no spoilers for WandaVision.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
Same. It's on my list.
Well, it's good, and it's very digestible. The episodes are like half an hour, which seems so unlikely these days. Yeah.
I know. I was fully expecting like Mandalorian length.
Yeah.
45.
For sure.
Stuff like that.
And speaking of unexpected stream games, so Francis and I will occasionally do like a couch co-op couples night stream. that we call Divorce Night because it tends to get contentious. And he found on sale in the Nintendo eShop a game called Panty Party.
Yeah.
That had this big disclaimer that was like, this is not hentai. It is just a game where you play as a panty. And we played it last night, and it was...
It's literally just like badly drawn cut and underpants fighting each other.
Yeah.
There's nothing... Like, there's no hint of sex.
No, it's very weird.
That's fantastic.
In the game. It's very... yeah.
That's wonderful.
I loved it. And then we started doing story mode before
this.
he made me
There's a story
encouraged us to
mode.
quit. There's a story
Yes.
mode. And I was getting into it. Like, it's very Sailor Moon. It's just like, this girl is late for school. A panty comes and says that she's the chosen one. And then she has to, like, transform into a panty that has, like, the little bandana, like a magical girl, and then just, like, fight other panties. And there's nothing sexual about it. It is hilarious. I'm so into it, and I am going to play it without Fritz.
I really want you to stream story mode if you don't
I'm
mind.
going to.
And-
I love it.
Okay, good. Because I was like, when you told me about this game and you were like, it has a disclaimer on it that says this is not hentai, like my eyes rolled so far back into my head.
Same.
I was like, of course, sure.
Yeah.
Like the fact that was that literal, I was like, oh my God.
I'm really into it.
That's amazing.
So that's what it's done for
My
me
life
lately.
is better knowing this exists.
Yeah. And it was $5, so, like, you know.
Yeah. What about you, Sam? What has nerd culture done for you lately? Anything on your nerdy plate? It's filling it up.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Really, most of my attention in spell slots is going towards getting ready for the end of my longest streamed game that's coming up soon, which is also just the longest game I've ever played in for like a TTRPG.
Which game is that?
This is my game Agora's Bells, which is currently a fantasy age game, and we have like 2 more episodes left and then an epilogue, and I've played this character since level 3 and I love her, and it's taking up a lot of emotional bandwidth.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, like she just
When does
hit
it
a
end?
major we play alternating Wednesdays, and we have 2 more sessions. So this coming Wednesday the 3rd is like part 1 of our like 2-part finale. So it'll pretty much be ending like right at the end of February or so, and then we have an epilogue, and then my sweet knife cat will hopefully retire if she doesn't, die in epic finale battle.
Okay, I will keep all fingers
goodness.
Yeah.
and limbs crossed.
We'll see. I love her, my sweet disaster. So that's just taking up a lot of my emotional like bandwidth, because I'm like making notes in preparation for the epilogue, assuming she lives. And oh my God, it's gonna be wild.
She'll live. She has to
Yeah,
live.
I hope
I'm
so.
so invested.
I think
in
she
her
will.
living.
Knock on wood. Honestly, like, things have played out that legit, like, she could die and be happy in this finale, too. Like, she's hit her goals. It's a classic I did not expect to make it this far kind of deal.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Wow. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to
That's
see what
really
happens.
exciting.
Yeah, 2 years.
I have heard
it's a
2
2-year-long
years.
game, yeah.
Yeah, that's wow. That's so much investment and so much like growth
Yeah,
and
a lot.
change.
She's grown a lot.
How do you feel about the age system? I've heard really good things about them.
I'm really enjoying it. They have this cool mechanic called stunts. It's a 3d6 system, and if you roll matching on like 2 dice, then you generate stunt points that you can spend to do like extra cool things in, like a scene or in a combat. So depending on how many stunt points you generate, it's like it could be something easy, like maybe you deal a little extra damage, or maybe you get like a whole extra attack you can make, or can try to knock somebody prone or disarm them or something like that, and it's really fun.
Oh yeah, that sounds really
yeah,
neat.
I think it's kind of the bane of our GM's existence, because it's, yeah, fine, sure, yeah, you stunt, okay. Everybody goes to the front of the initiative, fine, whatever. Because that's one of the options, is it's just you can go to the front of the initiative order. And it's awesome.
That sounds great for RP.
It really
does.
is.
Yeah.
It really is a lot of fun. And I like it a lot. It's one of those systems that's sort of modular, where you start with like a basic archetype, and then you pick talents and specializations to sort of tailor your character more how you want. And this is a game that we're playing over the Chromatic Chimera, where we are really like loose and fast with rules as written. So
Good fan.
Yeah, we're big fans of narrative and rule of cool over there. So we've got, we have like our warrior cleric that's just a total mishmash of different classes that, as written, can't really be combined, but it makes them super awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really like the system, and I'd like to try other age ones too, like, because I know they have a bunch of different ones that Green Ronin publishes.
Yeah, I keep getting them recommended to me, and they're definitely on my list.
It's
sure.
a lot of fun. Yeah, I like it a lot, and at this point, we've played it from like pretty high level too. Was when we jumped in, because the game started as a 5e game, and we switched over at like level 10 or something like that, or level 9.
Ooh.
Like, we were up there, but it's been awesome.
That's so great.
Like, it was a really cool experience too, actually, to translate our same characters into an entirely different system, which we've done a few times because we were trying to figure out like what we wanted to try out. And when we settled on age, it was really fun to remake things.
Yeah, and kind of like, it's kind of like, I've done that before, where you like translate a character to a new system, and it feels kind of like when you're a teenager and you like buy new clothing to try to reinvent yourself. Like, you're like, you're still the same, but like now you wear a lot of pinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a little bit of a flavor change.
Yeah, very much.
I like I think that's really cool that your group was so like flexible in trying to test out new stuff, because that can kind of be a hard sell sometimes.
Definitely.
To like try new things, especially when a game's been going on for a long time. People get very like attached to their things, so that's really, really cool of everyone to have been flexible and going with the flow like that.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I'm really lucky. I love playing with the folks there, because I play with most of the same people on Wednesdays over at the Chimera. We alternate between 2 games. Although once this wraps, actually, we will be heading into like a 1 game every Wednesday, which is going to be exciting. And I'm looking forward to that. And that's going to be a 13th age game. We haven't given like too many specifics, but we talked about it already on stream, so I can say it now.
Oh, good.
But I'm super excited for that too. But yeah, so I've been playing with these people for about 2 years now, and they're some of the first people that I ever started streaming with, really. Our GM, Chris, actually is who is responsible for me getting into TTRPG streaming, because he had invited me to like just play test a module that he wrote like a couple of years ago before the channel existed. And then I had a hard time doing it because I had a terrible laptop that was like 10 years old. And I was like, okay, this would have been a lot of fun if I could have heard a single thing that was happening. So that encouraged me to get like a better setup.
That's awesome. Well, look at you now.
I know.
You do so much streaming and so much online work in TTRPG spaces and stuff. That's incredible.
It's all Chris's fault.
We can blame him.
Yes.
That's fine. We really buried the lead. Avalon, what are we doing right now?
What's happening? Why are we here?
We got really excited and we forgot to intro the podcast.
Yeah, we did. This is a podcast. Hi. You know that because you clicked on a link.
You did.
You opened your podcast app and saw us there and you clicked on it. So you
Correct.
know that this is a podcast. So I don't feel that bad that I didn't tell you that this is a podcast. But
That's true.
welcome to Femsplained.
Yes.
We don't really have a very solid format, but in general, this is a podcast where femmes have the mics and everyone of every gender representation is welcomed and invited to come and listen, laugh, and learn with us. And last week, what was last week's topic? Last week's topic. Oh, right. Last week's topic was our super secret homework episode if you follow us on Patreon. But for those listening to the free version of the podcast, our last episode was our Disney fight, our Duke It Out episode where Avalon and I fought over our favorite Disney films pre-Pixar. And I don't know, it's subjective who won.
I think the consensus that I'm seeing is that in terms of being a better debater, you won. But in terms of being a better movie, my movie, The Little Mermaid, won.
Oh, I think that's what I'm seeing from the
Yes.
Discord and from Twitter.
Yeah.
And I accept that partial.
It's a little hard for me to get the read that it's like, yeah, your movie was better, but your performance was not worthy of that movie.
Like, you should have won that.
Right.
That's what everybody's saying. So that was our topic from last week. If you are just joining us, we are coming up this week. We can't tell you what the topic is until we bring a man in here to explain it to us first. So take it away, Francis.
In a mansplain minute. Ooh, everything's explained. In a mansplain minute. Ooh, tell the ladies what to say. In a mansplain minute. Putting 1 minute on the man watch and go. Deep Space Nine, the best Star Trek. When I heard that there was going to be a guest whose topic was Deep Space Nine, well, I just about lost my marbles. And of course, I wanted to run into the room just to make sure they were up to the task of open quote, femsplaining, end quote, this excellent, excellent show. But Avalon locked the door, and apparently our doors are pretty thick, because she couldn't hear me. Pounding and scratching and screaming. So desperate was I to make sure that the audience knew my theories about Garrick's true intentions before this so-called expert came in and sullied a good thing. Anyway, Deep Space Nine is great for reasons that Avalon and Diana will never be able to femsplain to you during the homework episodes, because for some reason, the homework does not include watching the entirety of TNG, followed by the entirety of Deep Space Nine, followed by the entirety of Voyager, because apparently 376 hours of programming is too much to do in a week, Francis. What were we talking about? Deep Space Nine? Okay, well, let me talk to you about why it's so good. Well, nope, we're past a minute. All right. Well, then, on to the show.
Well, who knows what Francis said? I'll find out later. And so will you. But we have brought Sam onto the podcast to talk about Star Trek, but specifically Star Trek Deep Space Nine? Is it?
Yes.
Am I saying it right?
Yes.
Because I know nothing about
Yes,
Star Trek.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine, also abbreviated to Star Trek DS9. It's quicker to type and saves Twitter characters. But
Sweet.
it is. Oh shoot! What year did it launch? I'm bad at dates and stuff. I'm pretty sure it began in the late '90s. Or mid to late 90s, and actually sort of overlapped with TNG for a few seasons. Star Trek The Next Generation, that's the one with Patrick Stewart, if you're not familiar. And of course, heads up, I'm gonna be spouting off tons of Star Trek spoilers.
Yes,
But-
yes. This is a
yeah.
spoiler-heavy podcast in general, so please go
But
ahead.
only for the older Treks, really, actually. I haven't seen Star Trek Discovery or the Picard series, because I don't have CBS All Access, which totally flies in the face of everything Starfleet stands for. But, whatever. It's
Well,
fine.
I've seen Picard, but not Discovery.
I want to see them both. I hear in
Yeah.
Discovery, like, all good, or any Star Trek takes until about the third season to, like, really get good. That's kind of a thing if you're not aware, at least.
I just found out about this theory.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That the third season is of any series that's longer than 5 seasons is the best, and also where it like hits its stride.
Pretty much.
Is what I've.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm
There
sorry,
are
I
other
just
markers
heard about
as
that.
well. For TNG, once Riker gets his beard, shit is real. And in DS9, when Benjamin Sisko, my favorite Starfleet captain, fight me. And I say this as somebody who loves Jean-Luc Picard and Patrick Stewart each in turn. But when in DS9, when Sisko shaves his head and gets his beard, like when he gets his beard, shit is real, and when he shaves his head and has his beard, shit is really real. And like those are the benchmarks. But something I like with DS9 is I actually think it is still a really enjoyable series prior to that mark when things get real. It still has that sort of, those early seasons still have a show finding its feet feel that like TNG kind of really has in those early seasons. Like they've got that sort of classic lower budget Star Trek feel, and like those really awkwardly designed unitard like space uniforms that I will never understand why people think that's like the cool utility futuristic look, because they're so impractical. The zipper is in the back. Like, how is that good functional futuristic design?
Right.
Yeah, I feel like we
Especially
should.
with,
Sorry, go.
No. I'm just saying, especially with how much fighting they seem to do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I just feel like zippers will be obsolete in general in the future. I don't know,
Right?
zipper technology feels like there's got to be something
We
better.
invented Velcro to go to space for a reason. It's better.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Although, Star Trek Enterprise spoilers, allegedly a Vulcan just sold us, Velcro because of weird, time things. Wait, no, was it time things or was it a flashback? I don't know. Enterprise sucks.
So,
What would you say? Oh, sorry, Avalon.
Diana, I'm so sorry. I think we have the tiniest bit of delay. We don't normally interrupt each other as much.
okay.
I'm so sorry. I was just gonna say, what makes Deep Space Nine your favorite? What makes it different from the other series?
For me, a really big thing is that I am a sucker for long-term character arcs, development and narrative and growth. And it's not to say that character development and longer arcs don't happen in TNG, or certainly in Star Trek Voyager, which happens after Deep Space Nine, so I sort of don't count it in the same as a build up to that type of show, I guess, within the Star Trek series, I don't know. I'm not finding the right word. Franchise, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Because the original series and the Next Generation are both very episodic, sort of Monster of the Week style stories, except it's Space Adventure of the Week, Alien Planet of the Week, the holodeck disaster of the week, that kind of thing. And for the most part, it's character change happens in an episode and then doesn't really come up again. Every now and then it does, and usually only for specific characters. But Deep Space Nine, right from the get-go, launches into, it's different because not only is it longer-term narrative, but it sort of has to be, because rather than taking place on a mobile spaceship, or starship, like the original series or TNG. It takes place on a space station, so it's actually primarily a stationary location where they need to sort of flesh out the people who live there. And like the nearby planet called Bajor that it, orbits and stuff like that. So I really like that sort of setup for a more long-term character growth where things that happen in one episode like matter in later ones, and you see that weigh on the characters and they change accordingly. I think DS9 just does a better job of showing that than other series do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like a
like like the narrative way that, I mean, I'm only kind of tangentially familiar with Star Trek as a series. I've seen The Next Generation, but I'm not really familiar with like the whole franchise for sure. But it does seem that the way the older shows were set up, where each episode they're going to a new location and they're engaging with a new kind of like a Monster of the Week type of setup, and it lends itself to being more episodic. There's less of a connector, but then on Deep Space Nine they have this like home base,
right?
Like where I think that's pretty cool.
And DS9 focuses a lot on like darker aspects of I guess I humanity, yes, but it's a lot of different like alien species and factions involved. So it's like on the darker side, it focuses more on a darker side of humanity. It addresses things like war in a way that earlier series, I feel like a lot of people say like, a big difference between like Star Trek and Star Wars, just for like a sort of comparison thing, is that it's like Star Wars tends to be a little bit more like dystopian and grimmer, and Star Trek tends to be more, utopian, optimistic, this is what society could be. And I think
very true, yeah.
DS9 gets real sometimes. If like just sort of for some reference, Deep Space Nine is a space station located near a planet Bajor, which at the start of the series just came out of a violent occupation by people called the Cardassians of like 50 years, where they were like brutally subjugated in like forced labor camps and stuff. And it's very much, like a Holocaust allegory. Because Star Trek, really likes to run with, a lot of actual, like, historical parallels and things in their series and stuff.
Yeah.
So it handles some really dark themes, because there's a lot of, like, political entanglements as, Starfleet comes to sort of help Bajor recover from the end of this occupation that they sort of helped facilitate. But Cardassia is still, causing a lot of trouble, and then there's issues where, like, of course not everybody in Cardassia agrees, and not everyone in Bajor is, on the same side of the same things,
right.
And there's, like, a very heavy religious theme to it as well, because also, Star Trek is also really well known for very monolithic peoples. Klingons are battle-hungry, Vulcans are distant and logical, and humans are whatever we need them to be for the episode.
That's very true.
So,
my
but everybody
God.
loves us for our sense of adventure. Like, so, shoot, I totally lost track of, like, where I was running now.
That's totally fine. I love that you brought that up, the singular focus, like,
yeah, it's problematic
like
for
a-
sure.
yeah, but I kind of didn't like piece that together, that it was more than, I guess I always knew that the Vulcans were portrayed that way,
Right.
but I didn't really realize how many other creatures in Star Trek had that ascribed.
It's all of them, Ferengi are greedy and jealous, and then, things get even more problematic, when you sort of, like, dig deeper and realize, all of these mirror, our own real world, like, issues with, racism and
Right.
portraying people as, like, one monolithic culture and stuff like that. And there are some ways that DS9, sort of, like, addresses that. I feel like in terms of, like, the original series or TNG, and Voyager, which I have opinions about Voyager, which I love, but also have a lot of feelings about. I think they sort of, they try more to show that, like, gray area of, like, people are different and, like everywhere, like, we see a dark side of Starfleet that we don't really see in other series. Like, there's, like, a clandestine secret, like, CIA faction we discover over time. There's a captain in Starfleet who's friends with Ben Sisko, who, like, betrays Starfleet to join with, like, these rebels called the Maquis, who don't agree with some of the peace accords made between Bajor and Cardassia. Like, they illegally inhabit, like, a demilitarized zone, and there's, like, constant skirmishes and battles and stuff. It gets really heavy, and, they address a lot of things, like, they talk about, genocide. They have some really dark episodes that are, like, time travel, where you see like, Bajorans, like, working in these, like, sort of labor camps. It's not super graphic because, cable TV, but you can really see, like, what they're trying to do. And they go really heavy with some episodes. There are some really actual, like, beautiful standout episodes that I just love. I'm, like, trying to think of their names right now. First comes to mind is a two-part episode called Past Tense, where they actually, this gets a little uncanny, they travel back in time to 2024, where we see, like, a lot of, honestly, things that, like, we see now kind of, like, happening, but, like, TV-ified. Like, there's, like, sanctuary districts where, the government puts, like, unemployed or mentally ill, people who, like, can't work, like, for safety kind of thing. And this arc, like, talks about how from this adventure in these episodes, because the characters get thrown back in time, end up participating in what's called the Bell Riots, which is an uprising in one of these sanctuary districts that directly leads to, like, social reforms that eventually causes Starfleet and the Federation to be founded.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's really, really cool and really unsettling to, like, watch, because it's, like, especially in, like, the last, 4 years or so, it's uncannily, like, accurate in a lot of ways. And I think it's really awesome that Star Trek, like, kind of handles that. And they reflect that in these other episodes. What is the episode title? There are these handful of episodes where Benjamin Sisko, who is thought to be an emissary of the Bajoran people, because, I was talking about how they're a very religious people. They follow this religion called the Prophets, and at the start of the series we find out there's a stable wormhole near Bajor where these alien beings live in, and Benjamin Sisko sort of has, like, an encounter with them, and he realizes that those alien beings are who the Bajorans think are the Prophets. And it's, like, this really deep, like, conflict that keeps coming up between, like, Starfleet and Bajor about, like, spirituality versus, like, no, these are just freaking aliens. And, like, making decisions like that. But there are these episodes where Ben Sisko has, like, these visions where he is a man in, like, the 1950s on, like, Earth. And he sort of, like, loses touch on, like, reality of, like, he sees this world of DS9 and he's a science fiction writer in this vision he has, and he thinks he's writing Ben Sisko's story. And the show takes us through this recurring arc of these visions, where he's Benny in the 1950s, trying to make it as a sci-fi writer, as a black man in like New York, and you see all of the other characters in like a very Wizard of Oz way, where like they're all humans and like playing
and
different
they're all,
people.
like, just people in his
yeah.
life. Oh
It's-
God, I love
it's
that. I do. I'm such a sucker for that.
Fantastic. And there's like 2 or 3 episodes that address this, where like these visions come back, and like it's really intense. And you're sort of like not always sure like which thing is like reality. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's a beautiful show sometimes. Some of the things they do, like, also weren't really things that, as far as I'm aware, hadn't been seen on TV in like the mid-90s, and things like that. And oh my God, I have like so much that I just want to gush about, and I keep going off on tangents, which I guess is sort of the
that's
point.
That's the point.
Yeah, no, seriously, you're doing all the work for us. We're just like, yeah.
I love it. I love
Just
it.
sell it. So in terms of the crew on this space station, who are our major characters? And why do we like and or dislike them?
Yes.
I honestly, this is like one of those shows where I love literally every character. Like, even the characters that you're supposed to hate, I'm like, I fucking love to hate them.
Yes.
So, like, the main protagonists, I guess, would be pretty much the bridge crew of DS9. We have Captain Benjamin Sisko, his first officer, Major Kira Nerys, or eventually she becomes Major. I'm sort of, like, blending the rankings together. And she is actually a member of the Bajoran militia, who's, like, stationed on the station as a way of sort of, like, tying in the, like, Starfleet and Bajor relations, because Bajor isn't actually part of the Federation. A major plot is of the series is Bajor is petitioning to join the Federation, and Ben is sort of stationed there to like make sure it happens. And you know, things get problematic with like all kinds of, you know, things that happen. There is also Lieutenant Commander Jadzia Dax, who is a joined Trill of 7 lives. Trill are a symbiotic species, where there's like a host body and a symbiote, which is like very sort of Yerk from Animorph style, this like worm-like thing that gets inserted.
It always comes back to Animorphs.
It does.
Always.
It should. Everything comes back to Animorphs. I've learned so much from that book series. That's what I should have talked about. But yeah, so the symbiote retains the memories of their past hosts, and Jadzia is Jadzia Dax. Dax is the symbiote. Whatever, the symbiote. And that Dax's previous host was actually a really good friend of Ben Sisko's, who was an older male and actually acted very much as a like mentor to Ben. So we get to see this new dynamic between these characters in the series of Ben Sisko becoming friends and sort of a mentor to his former mentor, who is now like in the body of like a 28-year-old woman or something like that. And there's actually a lot of, you know, like parallels with Jadzia and being transgender, you know, things like, and there's that meme that you've probably seen of a woman with like spots on the sides of her face hugging a Klingon, being like, you know, my name, where the Klingon's saying, Curzon, my old friend, and she's saying, I'm Jadzia now, and he says, Jadzia, my old friend. That's from DS9. And Jadzia, that Klingon used to know Jadzia as Curzon, and it's this really great moment, because we actually see her sort of struggling with people like not able to separate Jadzia from Curzon as like a new host, a new person. Like, yes, she retains his memories and experiences, but like she is a different person now still.
Right.
Which is, certainly something that I know, as a non-binary person at least, can be sort of a difficult thing when you introduce yourself to somebody, after having like an identity change, so to speak.
Totally.
And like, I think when I first saw that after actually coming out as non-binary, it was like this moment of clicking when I was like, that's why I love her so much. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's awesome otherwise, because she's like this 300-year-old like science officer who just can do like pretty much anything as needed, more or less, and is really cool. Like, she gambles and she parties and has fun. I love Jadzia.
Awesome.
So she's one of the main characters. We have one of my favorite characters ever on a Star Trek, Constable Odo, who is a shapeshifter. Who we eventually find out originated through that, like, from a place beyond that wormhole, and is actually from, like, a people who end up being, like, major antagonists later in the series. And he is fantastic, because, with Odo, we get to see somebody who was discovered by Bajorans, like, scientists in a liquid state, like, essentially the equivalent of, like, a child, because he didn't know, like, he wasn't really aware of his own sentience at the time. So we see him, like, years later when he's, able to maintain, like, a humanoid form, and he's the security officer on the station. But, like, he's also learning about, humanity and people in strange ways. It's weird, because he's a very perceptive person, who, he's the security officer. He's like a detective, like a, investigator. Right. And he's just, I don't know, I love him. I'm having a hard time explaining him. He's very efficient. He is very focused on justice, and is like a very stoic, almost like straight man kind of character, who is played off against a character named Quark, who is a Ferengi who runs a bar on the station. And, once again, getting to that sort of problematic, monolithic representation, Ferengi are known for being very greedy, deceitful, like, money-grubbing, like, people. And so there's, like, this very antagonistic, like, frenemy dynamic between Quark and Odo. Where Odo's, like, always trying to capture Quark, and Quark is, like, kind of not even really this great criminal mastermind, but Odo's, like, super obsessed with it. Like, it's pretty wonderful. And over time, you sort of see this, like, they'll never admit that they're friends, but they totally are friends. Like, relationship
I love
bloom.
that.
Yeah, like, anytime they have an exchange, I'll sing a little song where I just go, Quark and Odo BFFs, because you can see it happening. Oh, it's so good. There's Dr. Bashir, who is a human medical officer who we eventually find out is a genetically modified person, which, if you know anything from, like, the sort of earlier, like, original series, if you know, like, the Khan arc, it's earlier on in Earth's history, there were, like, the genetics wars, pretty much, of, like, people, like, creating, like, super powered humans, like, that caused a lot of trouble, and it eventually meant that such genetic manipulation was outlawed within the Federation, and we find out, like, seasons into the show that Bashir is genetically modified, and it, like, has made him, like, super intelligent. He's, got, like, an eidetic memory and things like that, which I'm pretty sure the writers didn't have planned from the start, but if you pretend they did, it makes some of the choices from early on a whole lot less cringy, because I love me Dr. Bashir, but doctors should not flirt or date their patients.
Sure.
And he does it all the time, and it's like he begins the series as a very like cringy, like, I'm gonna hit on all the ladies, like he chases after Dax a lot, and it's like, dude, like, is there no sexual harassment training in Starfleet? What the hell? Yeah.
We've never seen it, so
Yeah,
I
HR
have to
and zippers are both the two things.
Yeah, we need human resources to come aboard Deep Space Nine immediately.
Right?
And then we need them to replace all
Like,
the zippers with
yeah,
velcro.
like he sort of grows up and gets over it eventually, and the character becomes so much more likable.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, again, it's sort of like looking back on that, you wonder, it's like, how much of that could you, at least if you want to be kind in your interpretation, be like him sort of trying to, overemphasize, like, I'm just a normal guy, not, an illegal genetically modified person who shouldn't be practicing medicine, like, by law. I could lose my license if anyone finds out. Just one of the guys, that's me.
Yes, I see what you mean. Yeah.
There's also the theory that Dr. Bashir and another character, he's like a side character, but is probably one of the best characters in the series, named Garrick. They're known for sort of like having these like lunch scenes, and they're totally like vibing each other, you can fucking tell. But the writers are cowards. I'm talking about you, Ira Stephen Barr, and everybody else was. I'm blanking out on all the other names right now. I actually don't even know if Ira Stephen Barr was one of the writers for DS9. Might have just been a producer by then. My
We're gonna blame them anyway.
apologies.
Yeah. Unless you did it.
Yeah.
In which case, no apologies. This is your fault.
Like, so if you sort of look at Bashir through the lens of like closet, like he's just sort of living in the closet, you can sort of also forgive his cringiness at the beginning of the series of like, oh, he's just not comfortable with himself. It doesn't make it okay. But I can understand it, and it's like a choice rather than just bad writing from a bunch of dudes in a writer's room.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's important to like be aware that a lot of those things weren't intentional, but I'm still gonna headcanon that they were.
Yes,
It helps.
that's
There's
enough.
only
Yeah, but I don't know. It's a beautiful show. I love it. I love it so much. There's so many things that I just like want to gush over it.
All right, I have a question.
Yes.
So, where would you place yourself in Deep Space Nine? So, like, if you were in this universe,
Ooh.
and you as Sam in every way, other than perhaps if you wanted to like be Klingon or whatever, but like you otherwise were just suddenly transported into this world, where do you feel like you would be?
Ooh, okay. That's a good question. I mean, I would always love to join Starfleet. I think I might make a good tactical, or security officer. I think I would be good with that, actually. So maybe that would be pretty
I like
rad.
that answer a lot.
Yeah. Years ago, I did an original series cosplay where I was a Vulcan, security/tactical officer, red dress deal.
Yeah.
And yeah, just because I think that would be my vibe. Otherwise, I would probably just sort of own a business on the promenade, which is like the sort of, strip mall level of the space station where like, the civilian shops and stuff are all located. So maybe I would run like a cafe. I would say I would run maybe a clothing shop, but I think Garrick would literally murder me if I moved in on his business.
On his territory.
On his territory. He's a character where a lot of the series is spent trying to figure out if he's a Cardassian spy or not, because he's the only Cardassian remaining on the station. Like everybody sort of theorizes he was exiled for some reason, but maybe that's a cover story type deal. And it's fantastic. It's really good. It's really good. There's a scene between Garrick and Quark that I actually just watched that is a fantastic, I think, example of sort of like a thieves' can's language for like RPGs and stuff, where like Quark is talking to him about like an ex-lover of Quark's who's a Cardassian who just came back to the ship, and may or may not be a member of like a radical political group or whatever, and they're having like this conversation about the dresses in Garrick's shop that aren't actually about the dresses in Garrick's shop, and it's like such a good example of, you know, one of those sort of like, you know, Garrick, possible ex-spy, and, like, Quark, the, you know, criminal smuggler of the promenade on the station, like, having this conversation, like, but not actually. It's so good. I love it so much. I just watched it before I came on, so it was on my mind.
Do you have a favorite episode, do you think? Or story arc?
Yeah, honestly, Past Tense, which I had mentioned earlier, is like hands down one of my favorites. But another episode that I really, really love is called Melora, which is about a Starfleet officer who comes to the station and uses a wheelchair because she is from a planet with a much lower gravitational pull than what, like, Starfleet and, you know, most other species operate on. So she has trouble, like, walking and moving in the station's gravity. And it's not perfect because this is when Bashir is still problematic, so of course he, like, spends the entire episode flirting and courting her. Which, you know, as a chronic pain patient is like, oh, yikes! For me, at least. But the character portrayal, I think, is very well done. Like, she has these scenes with, like, Captain Sisko and Dax and Bashir where she's like, you know, I don't know why the doctor is here, you know, for this briefing. You know, like, why do we have a doctor here? You know, clearly it's just because you're treating me like I'm a sick person kind of thing. And everybody's like, you know, no, we're not. It's just like, you know, he knows, like they literally say, like, he knows more about your capabilities than anybody here. And she was pretty much like, yeah, no, not so much, like I do. And ends up saying this one line where she's like, where I think, like, I think Sisko says, like, I understand or something like that, and she says, try being in the chair, no one can understand until you're in the chair, and, like, just, that line always hits me with such fucking feels, because it's true, and, like, it's one of those moments where it's painful to see that sort of ableism in Starfleet, which is supposed to be this utopian, you know, thing. And even before Melora shows up on screen, we have a scene with Bashir and Dax adding ramps into the station, because, you know, the Cardassians are bad guys, so I guess they have to also be ableists and stuff, where they're like, the Cardassians never planned for, you know, somebody like Melora to be here. And it's like, shut up, I saw stairs in the other, like...
Yeah.
I've seen stairs in the freaking, like, Enterprise before, shut up. Right there on the bridge. And, like, so, you know, it sort of, like, hurts to see that happen, but at the same time, I, like, still appreciate that. It's another moment of, like, the writers weren't doing that part intentionally. I'm sure they were, like, patting themselves on the back, like, haha, we're doing an episode about, like, disability. But at the same time, it still is a huge deal, and stands out a lot to me. Like, the arc of that episode is Bashir, like, offers Melora a procedure that would let her walk without, like, her apparatus in, like, you know, Earth-level gravity, but she wouldn't be able to return to her normal gravity without risking, like, damaging it, so she would, like, never be able to go back to her home planet again. And the episode sort of handles her wrestling with deciding whether to do that or not, which I think, you know, most non-disabled people watching don't realize how heavy and, like, serious, like, a topic that actually is to think about, but has, like, stood out to me a lot since my first viewing, which was only in my 20s when I was already disabled anyway. But seeing that, like, handled on a Star Trek really, like, that's a really good episode, like, to me at least. You know, spoilers, she doesn't go through with the surgery. Yeah. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
I like this like sort of allegory a lot, because the fact that there isn't actually anything that is wrong with her body in any way. She is in a world that is not made to accommodate her. Like, which is why she has to be in the chair. Like, which is more of an on the nose, like, allegory for how a disability actually is.
Yeah.
Like, that's.
It really highlights, I think, a medical versus a social model of disability as well. Because, you know, the episode focuses on Bashir trying to cure this thing that isn't something that needs to be cured. It's her natural, you know, biological state. Like, you know, we see some, you know, species with, like, breathing apparatus to help them, you know, breathe the air and stuff that they, you know, need if they're not from, like, an oxygen-based atmosphere. But, you know, I don't see, you know, we don't see many episodes focused on them too much, but, you know, we don't even see a conversation where people are like, oh, well, maybe they should get, like, a surgery to be able to breathe right. Like, you know, so I really liked having an episode focused on that. It's something that comes up in TNG every now and then with Geordi, because he was born blind, and he gets asked a lot, like, in The Next Generation, you know, like, why don't you get, you know, a bionic implant done? Or, you know, why didn't your parents, like, repair it before you were born? Because Star Trek does sort of address things like, you know, prenatal surgeries to do things like correct spinal curves and stuff. That's something that comes up in Voyager, actually. And it's, they handle a lot of really interesting, like, disability and chronic illness topics that I'm not confident the writers realized they were handling at the time. But
maybe not.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like sometimes with Melora, you know, you can definitely tell this was sort of something of, like, the 1990s, you know, handy-capable representation movement type deal, you know, where they're like, look at us, we're gonna have a character in a wheelchair in this episode, yay! And I definitely know I'm doing them some favors with my very kind interpretation of some of their decisions, but, you know, I'm doing it knowingly.
Yes.
Right. Well, that is your right. That is all our rights.
Exactly.
I mean, I imagine like 50% of all the characters I see on TV are gay, even though nobody wrote that into the script for me. But, like, you know.
One beautiful thing, I was complaining about how the writers were cowards about Bashir and Garak, you know, never actually being together or anything. But relatively recently, someone tagged me in, like, an interview clip of Alexander Siddig, who played Dr. Bashir, saying in an interview how, like, no, like, to us, Garak and Bashir were obviously in love and, like, flirting together. And I'm like, that's enough for me. That's
plenty.
That is all I fucking need. I am happy. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah. That makes my heart glad.
Yes. Oh, awesome.
So DS9 is beautiful, and I love it so much, and it is my favorite of the Treks.
I've seen a couple of episodes, like, incongruously when my partner's watching them, sort of coming into the room. But you've definitely sold me on it in a big way.
Score.
I know.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, because you actually kind of, like, gave it to us anyway, but typically we do try to either give each other or ask our guests to give us like a little bit of homework regarding to the topic, like what you would think of the episodes that you mentioned, the past tense episodes and the Melora episode. For somebody who hasn't seen the rest of the series in its entirety, which of those do you think would be a good, like, try to, or if there's another one you have, for us to try to jump in and watch an episode and try to get the vibe and get into it?
Okay. I feel like it can also sort of vary based on your experience with other Treks. Because, you know, again, more spoilers. If you're a fan of TNG, motherfucking Worf shows up in like season 4 or 5 it is.
Oh.
So, you know, I might be more likely to name an episode from there if you're a fan of TNG and you want to see Michael Dorn be awesome and actually listened to for a damn change. Because poor Worf, nobody listens to him on the Enterprise. His
That's
one
true.
job is to be like, we should fire phasers, and everybody else's job is to be like, we should never fire phasers. So I just feel really bad for him. Or his job is to show like how badass and strong the monster of the week is, and just like be like, well, if it kicks Worf's butt, then, you know, nobody else stands a chance. But it just makes Worf look like a wimp, and I hate
does.
it. But he's awesome. He's awesome in Deep Space Nine. So like if you've seen TNG and / or the original series, a really fun episode to get started into is actually called The Trouble with Tribbles. Which, you know, is a name that might sound a little bit familiar to you. That's a time travel episode with like a lot of deep fake the original series references. Like it's pretty fantastic.
Oh, cool.
And then, yeah. Or, you know, if you're a TNG fan and you want to see, poor Miles O'Brien also shows up in DS9. We actually see him leave TNG to switch series. That's why he's, like, gone in, like, the last 2 seasons. DS9, also known as the worst 7 years of Miles Edward O'Brien's entire life. He has some really fantastic episodes. I'm, like, blanking on the title names right now. I should have pulled them up.
Oh, that is like, you're already blowing me away with
Yeah.
your encyclopedic knowledge of this. Like when we talk about topics to each other, we're like, I don't know when this came out or who was in it or anything, but let me tell you, I like it.
Excellent. Oh man, if you wanted to just see some really good freaking acting, this is sort of late in the series, so it would likely have a lot of spoilers, but if you just sort of want to see like shit be real, In the Pale Moonlight is a really good episode of DS9, where Ben Sisko like really shows that sort of moral gray area of like what war can make people do, and sort of show that darker side of things Starfleet is, you know, able and willing to do, and it's some really beautiful acting. Avery Brooks is so phenomenal as Ben Sisko. Like, I wish he was in more stuff now. I don't know what he's up to these days. Fun fact, he went to Mason Gross, which is a school at Rutgers, which is my alma mater, so, you know, that's always really exciting.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I think he might actually, like, live in Princeton, somebody told me once. Like, that's kind of, like, not, like, near me, but, you know, New Jersey is small.
Yeah.
But I really... Yeah. Go ahead.
I am not a Rutgers alum myself, but a lot of our mutual IRL friends are Rutgers folks.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
And if we know anybody mutually, then that will be fascinating to me.
Yes, they'll be very excited. Anybody who went
yes.
to Mason Gross specifically or Rutgers, New Brunswick will be able to be like, yeah, I went to school at the same school that Avery Brooks went to. It'll
Very
really
cool.
impress other Star Trek nerds. But he is wonderful. Yeah, there's some really amazing acting in the show. Louise Fletcher is in it, a.k.a. Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, who is absolutely typecast as, you know, this terrible woman you just want to punch repeatedly in the face. But in, like, a wonderful way. You know what I mean? Like, she's one of those characters that I hate.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. Jeffrey Combs is in it. He plays, like, 4 or 5 people, as he is wont to do in any Star Trek.
Sure, of course.
Wow. This, I have to tell you, this is probably the most informative episode of Femsplain that's ever been recorded. Like, we genuinely, like, I have notes written down. I'm so excited. This is fantastic. Security Officer Sam.
Oh, that's me.
Thank you.
Yes.
For duty.
for this incredible episode. This also went by so fast
did.
because of how, like, just enthusiastic and and wonderful you were. Wow, Avalon, do you have any last questions?
I don't think I do. I'm just excited to do some watching for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Do it, please. Like, let me know what you think too. You know,
for sure.
friggin' tag me, DM me, whatever. I want to hear. I've been tweeting like my rewatching because I started rewatching again, even though I just finished a watch when I found out I was gonna come on. So.
Oh, I love that. Well, Sam, do you have anything that you'd like to plug or let people know where they can?
Oh, sure. Well, if you don't know, you can find me on Twitter, where I am at the Samwisest. I am also the Samwise Gamegee on Twitch, where I will be streaming some video games again, hopefully in the near future. I'm also the accessibility director over at the Chromatic Chimera, where I'm also a cast member, and I am a cast member in No Initiative, where we play Quest the Soaring City every Monday. The Chromatic Chimera is also where I play Agora's Bells, so if you want to see Blossom on the Water / Chasing Shadows in the Moonlight, because she has 2 names because I'm extra, if you want to see if she makes it through the finale, you can watch us there.
That's awesome. And just remind me, it's on Wednesday is the finale?
Wednesdays at 7 p.m. If we're not playing Agora's Bells, we're playing our 13th age game called Madame Curio's Bizarre Bazaar, which is specifically an episodic series too, like meant to be easy for people to just jump into. And it's going to be foreshadowing some things that happen after the finale of Agora's Bells that are going to be in our next campaign called Woven Realm. So, you know,
Ooh, very cool.
check it out. It's going to be wild.
These are all great names for things.
Thank you. I will make sure to pass it on to Mr. Puddins. He's the one who came up with most of them.
It's Puddins.
Mr. Puddins
okay.
and Touch of Tiefling are like the 2 founders and the GMs for all of those. So
Nice.
That's fantastic. Well, wow, that's amazing. Avalon, where are we looking for you?
I am _CatAttack in most places, including Twitch and Twitter. I want to plug my book club because it's a new month, so we're picking a new book. Last month we did Dawn by Octavia E. Butler. It seems like, based on what the group is into, we're leaning into sci-fi, and most of the suggestions for February are all from Black authors, and it's just been quite an experience because I'm not somebody who has ever read sci-fi before. So it's just been a really interesting lens to gain. And so, yeah, if you're interested in joining our Discord for February, I just wanted to throw that out there. It's on my Twitter.
awesome.
Cool. All right, so you can get in on the ground floor for the new book now, which is a good thing. Awesome. And then there's me. I'm Super Dylan, all the places. And
You have something to announce.
I do. At this point, I do have something to announce because it will be announced by then. I have a couple of things. So, one, we have done casting for our first sponsored campaign of the year. It is City of Mists. Yes. We have a beautiful cast of a lot of awesome people, including Dee, who is It's the Riddler on Twitter, is going to be our GM for City of Mists. Awesome. We are, I'm just thrilled with everybody who's joined to be a player in it. City of Mists is giving us some copies for giveaways. Yes. We are paying the cast, which is something I've always been dreaming of being able to do. And it's going to be awesome. It's going to be in March.
That's awesome.
Saturdays in March. I'm so thrilled.
That's really cool. That is one of my favorite systems, just saying. So I'm really excited for this.
I'm just marveling at it. It looks so
really
cool.
fun.
What, Avalon, is there something?
Yes. So on February 13th, Saturday, February 13th, Valentine's Day weekend, we are going to do a fundraising stream for Femsplained and Friends. Proceeds will go to the Trevor Project, and we are having a ton of people. I'm so excited because it's such a silly idea.
Oh my God.
But Danny Plays Games will be our game show host for the evening. Oh my God. And then we have 4 creative duos that are going to play in the style of the Newlyweds Game to see who knows their co-host the best. And so it's, oh my gosh, you have to help me remember everybody.
It's Nomadic. So from Nomadic and Aris from Gnome Brew, they do a morning show on Twitch.
Yes.
So they're going to be one of our duos. Then we have Noir Enigma and Panita from Critical Misses. They do a morning show called Morning Ritual on that channel. Then we have the podcast Secret Histories of Nerd Mysteries, which is Skeller Scout Austin and Brenda, whose handle I forget.
SnellBK, I think.
SnellBK, thank you so much. And then us.
Yep.
We're the fourth. Okay. Yes. So we're gonna try to compete to see who knows the best, and in the meantime, also raise money for the Trevor Project. So I think it's gonna be fun and productive
Yes.
at the same time.
So if you are a podcast listener who does not normally do the streaming thing very much or doesn't do the TTRPG thing very much, please do consider tuning in for this. There's no barriers to entry in nerdiness. It's just going to be a good old-fashioned silly time with game shows for a cause. So check that out.
Yes. That'll be on Super Dylan, my Twitch channel, on the 13th at 7 p.m. EST.
I think.
Yes.
I don't remember.
Good. And all right, I think that's it. We do need to give a special shout out to our Patreon patrons. Avalon, do you have them?
I do.
handy?
My phone just went to sleep. Okay, so thank you to our top tier Patreon patrons. It's been a great first month on Patreon for us.
It really has been.
We have Chris, Nuance, Daniel, Celeste, and Nostradamus, who I don't know who that is. I haven't noticed them before.
I know, but I bet that they know a lot of creepy things about the future.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, Sam, again.
Oh my God, Sam, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anytime, if you want to, gush more about your DS9 reactions when you watch it, please fill me
We
in.
will be reaching out to you, and
Yes,
I expect updates
Especially
and
when we do
reactions.
very much so.
all right.